What the f?
What's going on, guys? Big Al's Bike and Auto coming at you with a classic Copart walk around like the old days, because I'm back home in Miami where we used to do these things. I haven't been doing Copart up north because with all the rust of vehicles in New England, and at the time I was working a full-time job during the week, couldn't get out to the auctions and check, and you don't want to be blind up there because you'll end up with a rust bucket if you couldn't look at it beforehand. That's not a problem down here in South Florida. And I'm able to look, so here I am. This is one of the vehicles I'm interested in. It's a Alero, donated. What year is it? It's a 2001, 140,000 miles, so not too high, about average for a vehicle this age. Paint seems to be in decent shape, it's just all the dust on it from Copart. Interior is in decent shape, although it's got a nasty, almost like a urine smell, but you can see the windows are stuck down in the back, so I'm sure water's been getting in here, and that will lead to all sorts of nasty odors. Steering feels good. I haven't seen how it shifts. When I'm checking on this car, my big concern with these 3400 motors is always the head gasket. You can see we do have a low coolant light, so I have the cap off the reservoir. I'm gonna let it run for a few minutes and see if it overheats at all, if we get any bubbling in the reservoir, any exhaust gases coming out, see if there's a head gasket problem. Not a definite test for sure, but about all I can do here without any tools. And no one's bid on this one yet. If it stays pretty low and I'm confident the head gasket's fine, I don't see any reason not to throw a bid on it. Engine's very clean, oil is clean. Again, my only concern so far is the lack of coolant. So we'll see. I'm gonna let this run for a few minutes and I'll check back in. Okay, so it's been a few more minutes, and while the temperature gauge is maintaining, there is a little bit of smoke coming out of the, could be exhaust gases coming out of the surge tank. It could also just be the coolant heating up. It's not a definite sign, but again, I have to work with what I can do here. Those heater hoses are very hot. Doesn't mean for sure that we have a head gasket problem, but certainly something to be careful with. It just feels like the cooling system is very hot on this one, and I don't see any other reason why it would have been donated. So I may just pass on this. I don't really want to get wrapped up in a potential bad head gasket on a vehicle. It really isn't worth that much anyway. We'll just hop inside real quick and see if the AC works. Because if the air doesn't work, a definite no-go, because cars with no AC in South Florida basically scrap at that point. Nobody wants them, and the air is not working whatsoever. The interior has definitely seen better days. I think with the risk of a potential head gasket problem, or it could be the intake manifold gaskets, but either way, needing some pretty hefty engine work and lack of AC, we're going to go ahead and pass on this one and move on to the next. You can just hear the hissing by the surge tank from all the pressure in the cooling system, and you can look at the hose there. Yeah, I mean, something's definitely going on with the cooling system in this car, and with this motor, it leads me to believe it's probably the head gasket. All right, here's the second vehicle that I'm interested in today. We actually just got added to the auction list for tomorrow this morning. This worked out nicely, because if I came here yesterday I would have missed it. This is a 1986 300E. I'm sure some of you are laughing because I own two of these W124s and I haven't had the best of luck with either. These cars are bulletproof and they'll run no matter what's wrong with them, unless they have a bad wiring harness, which this does not have that issue because it's an earlier model. It was in the early 90s that they went to the biodegradable harness. The biggest issue this car could have as a gas 3-liter is the head gasket. The battery's dead. I tried to start it a few minutes ago, so I'm going to have them come out with the jumper pack, but I figure I'll show the car first. I'll have them come and jump in. What we'll do, similar to the Alero, So let it run for a good while and see if it overheats. There is coolant in the reservoir. However, there is a bottle in the trunk. Looks like an old bottle, so maybe you kept it in here just to be safe, but with these cars, you never quite know. And also these odometers typically stop working. However, the oil change sticker says 90,000 miles, so perhaps it does still work. I'd have to check the Carfax and see if there's any mileage recording on there. But this car is from the Miami area. It's been here for a long time, Key Biscayne. So there is some minor body rust blemishes on the car. No rot, but a couple areas where the paint has started to, where the paint may have been chipped or something, if there's rust starting. But again, I'll show that in a minute. The interior is in great shape on this car. It's in beautiful shape, and of course, it's already sparked a lot of interest, even though it was just added today. The bid's already at $225, which may seem low, but obviously the auction isn't here yet. This is still a pre-bidding phase, so this car could get up as high as $1,000, if not more, especially at tax time, which you may look at this car and say, geez, it seems like a bargain, but you don't know what's wrong with it, obviously, until you get home and you drive it. I mean, these transmissions, they have issues with the vacuum in them, and they'll shift very harshly. Again, fixable, but all these things add up versus just buying one locally in person that you know is good to go. Saw the nice leather case here on the original key. Yeah, that battery, it's interesting. You know, if you let it sit for a few minutes, it tries, but it never quite cranks it over. So we definitely need a jump. But you can see someone did change the radio, which I usually hate. However, it's a German radio, so it's appropriate to the vehicle. So they put in some Walmart one, so I guess we can live with that. Let's see if there's... Oh, but this car is in great shape. I'd love to pick this up and add it to my collection. Hopefully it'll work better than my other two. The other one I have, the gray market white one, the 300E, that one needs a head gasket and some transmission work and some rear differential work. So pretty much everything. And it's got body rust, which when I got it was kind of like this, just blemishes, and because I let the car sit outside in the humidity, it's now rotted through. This is a very common rust area on these 300Es right here, and usually right around here too. So this one, all things considered, isn't too bad. I'll show you in the trunk what I was talking about. Got this bottle of coolant back here, so, but you can see it looks like a pretty old bottle. So you might have just had this back here as a just in case. Maybe the car has a very slight coolant leak. We'll check around the engine again, but I'm definitely interested in this car, hoping that it'll work well, unlike my other two. And of course I have the 400E with the V8, and that is also having all sorts of issues. The wiring harness, unsurprisingly, I knew that when I bought the car, but it also seems to have a bad head gasket as well. So hopefully this one will be the third time's a charm if I do buy it. You can see a few blemishes on the hood here. Nothing too severe, nothing that can't be touched up and repaired very easily at this point. You can tell it was definitely a seaside car. Like I said, Key Biscayne's an island. There's always salt in the air blowing around. So obviously it's kind of attacked all the unpainted surfaces here. But the engine looks very clean. Usually when these have a bad head gasket, you'll see coolant leaking down the side of the block. I don't see any of that. We also know how long it's been since this vehicle's been ran. So it's possible that there was and it dried up. But I don't see any signs of a bad head gasket. The oil's clean. So anyway, I'm going to have them come out and jump start this, and we'll let it run for a bit. And there's one more car I came here for today, which is a 99 Malibu. You guys know me and those Malibus. I love them.
Right, yeah.
But we run it for 3 days once it's overused. Okay, so we have the Benz running. Very nice guys there, helping me out with the booster pack. And what I'm going to wait and see, as I said earlier, is oh, it looks like the buzzer decided to start working now because I have the door open. Let me see. Oh no, it's just happy to see me. So I just want to wait a few minutes, see if the temperature gets crazy hot. It shouldn't, even if it has a bad head gasket, there's coolant in there, so I don't think that would happen. But I just want to see how she runs after a while. You know, test all the windows out, stuff like that. And we can already see the driver's side is not working. Very typical. Oh, there it goes. It's just a little slow. These switches, yeah, they're a little sticky, that's all, but they do work. That one works. That one works. How about the sunroof? Yeah, they're just very slow, but with a little persuasion, they all do work. Now, this would be a nice car to have down here, since I can't drive my white one anymore. Now, you'd think I'd be smart and just fix the white one and drive that, but, you know, it's always easier to just buy another car. That's always the easier way to do things. Steering feels pretty good, nice and tight, no clunking. Let's see, sorry about that buzzer, I'm sure some of you are going crazy. See if the AC works. These cars also have a lot of issues with the climate control system. I'd be shocked if the air works. Try different modes here, see if I get any change. Doesn't feel like it. Of course, I can always poke my head out, see if the clutch is spinning on the compressor. See if that aftermarket radio turns on and works. I'd also be surprised if that works. That's just hanging on there by a whim. I don't think this is going to work. Someone just had it in wrong. Now let's see if it works. Yep, so it does work. Well, we got power to it. It's the important thing. Brake pedal feels a little low, but we'll see if it holds the car. So it does hold the car. I do notice that we do have a red brake light on. This is Copart, so they may have just put the parking brake on, which doesn't appear to be the case. So perhaps the reason this vehicle was donated is because a brake line or maybe the master cylinder failed, which is certainly not a big deal. And the air does not work, which is kind of a disappointment. That's when we come out here, we check these things. You gotta factor that all in when you bid. Engine seems very healthy, seems to run very smooth. So like I said, I'm gonna wait a few minutes, see if our temp hangs around 80 degrees Celsius where it should be. And we'll see how it goes tomorrow, I guess. Power seat works. Power seat works. That door lock is not too happy. Well, this is always nice to see. What do we have here? Date service 91. And the mileage is 14,000. Those gentlemen I was with, they must have the Carfax app, which I do as well, but I haven't checked this one yet. They told me the miles are not actual, which doesn't surprise me. But the car is still in very nice shape. I don't care if the car's got 300,000 miles on it. You know, it was obviously well maintained. You can see the condition of the seats, all this vinyl leather, whatever this material is in these vehicles, it holds up extremely well. It's like marine quality vinyl. Really doesn't weather at all. So it seems to run pretty well. I think the issue with this one, I think the reason it was donated is likely the brakes. I did notice when I looked at it earlier, well, I didn't think much of it, the brake fluid reservoir is a little low. I didn't see any bottles of brake fluid in the car, so who knows, maybe it just started leaking. Sounds like there might be a slight exhaust leak down by the cat. Hey baby, rev it up a little bit. Rev it. Oh, you're good. Nothing too bad. Do me a favor, I'm gonna turn the air on, see if I see any activity with the, I just hit one of those buttons. Not that one, hit the next one over. And then hit the auto button. And the clutch isn't spinning on the compressor there. It definitely looks like an original, so I'm sure the AC does not work. Being that this was a Key Biscayne car, I'm sure they didn't care. And the beautiful sea breeze always coming through. Okay, so you guys just saw the Malibu get dropped off over here. I had to go up front and tell them to bring it out to the sales section. You guys know me with these cars. Like I was saying earlier, I have a weird obsession for them. This thing is remarkably clean. It's obvious that somebody loved this car. The paint's in great shape. And it's a loaded up one. It's got alloys, it's got a sunroof. Most of these cars are rental spec. The tires are in nice shape. I love the wheels. You can see they're the factory ones. They even have the little Malibu with the bow tie. So this car only has 97,000 miles. It's got the 3.1 and some front end damage. So what I want to see is just how bad it really is. Hard to tell in the pictures, and we're about to find out right now. So the crash bar in the front here, this lower crash bar, definitely got bent in. Well, problem is they taped this shut, of course. I might just have to, even though I usually don't like to do it, I'm an interested buyer, I might just have to peel it up and see what's going on, obviously, because I want to make sure it's not too bad. This vehicle would be certainly good for parts, but I don't really have the room for parts cars like I used to down here anymore, and I don't want to burden my neighbors anymore. So most of the stuff looks okay. This fender bracket over here looks fine, so it looks like the passenger fender can be salvaged. Even at the very tip here, there's no damage. This all looks the way it should. So that fender's all right. The hood obviously is bent, but you know, I suppose with a lot of working, you could probably get this hood to be almost its original shape and reuse it. You'd have some paint damage, but obviously it'd be more favorable to just find a hood the same color. I think this is a factory color. It looks like it might have been repainted because the paint job has a little bit of waviness to it that wouldn't necessarily be OEM. You can see it there maybe. Beautiful color, but it's definitely a repaint the more I look at it. But again, that tells you that somebody loved this car, because to repaint a Chevy Malibu of this generation, you have to like it enough. And someone has some custom mud flaps here that were installed very professionally with whatever screws they had laying around. We got 5 different screws, but whatever, those are easily removed. Tires up front look good. If anything, if I can get this thing for minimum bid, I'd be interested in it for the wheels and tires, because my Malibu that I drove here today, the tires are totally bald. It's got the ugly hubcaps and steelies on it. So if I got this car for under 400 bucks, I'd have some nice wheels and tires and maybe a few parts, if nothing else, or just park it. And well, okay, so these are, I was wondering what was going on with these seats. It looks like you might have had these recovered professionally, rather than just throwing some covers on them, because you can see they actually replaced the original cushions, and they look pretty nice. Again, someone obviously loved this car enough to go through that effort to do that. So this is loaded up for a Malibu of this era. It's got power windows, power locks, and it's supposed to still be a run and drive in very nice condition. Headliner's in great shape, and the sunroof is a very nice feature. I like this thing a lot. You know, I love these Malibus, and this, you're not going to find too many in this condition. Well, granted, you'll find them not wrecked, but let's see. So we got no juice. They did have it running. Factory radio, I love to see that. This is usually missing by now. Nice to see that's still there. We got cruise control, which doesn't surprise me too much. Get the owner's manual there still. So what I'm going to do, these seats are very nicely done. Look at that in the back. Very cool. And I love these, the door cards too. They have this leather versus, it looks like the back ones are different than the front. Maybe if you did that custom, I don't know. A lot of questions in this car, but I like it. So I'm going to do a little more investigating around it, see if I can get any better look underneath the hood there. You can see it's got some nice eBay taillights. I would get rid of those right away. And another way I can tell if this was repainted is because this badge has been moved and you can see it broke. So I just want to check, obviously, see the condition of the oil, which, you know, it's not milky. Check how much coolant's in the surge tank. And, you know, get a little peek inside the engine there. Make sure nothing looks too dirty or sludge filled. Engine's very clean. Again, I can't say it enough. Someone clearly took care of this car. Very, very clean engine. So we got recent serpentine belt. That alternator looks like a replacement. Even that power steering pump, it's definitely a replacement. So good to see the car has lots of maintenance. And the coolant is full. So I think we don't have any issues with any leaks or intake manifold gasket problems on this variant of the 3.1. What we got here? Liquid amp baits, great. Just touched that. Interesting, maybe the guy was getting ants in his yard. I've had that problem down here before when they get in the car. The engine looks very clean, and what we really need to see here is the condition of the structure of the vehicle. You can see this crash bar right here is all right. The radiator is definitely bent, although obviously not leaking because the coolant is still full. This bar right here needs to be replaced. The question is if the frame rails in the vehicle are damaged, and it's hard to say. They look like they are all right. Looks like this thing might have took the worst of it. It couldn't have been too hard of a hit because I imagine the damage would be a lot worse. But you can see here when you follow that rail back, everything still looks pretty tight, unaffected, so it's probably fine. Let's check on this side. We did just, like we checked there. And this one's hard to see because you have the battery hanging out over it, but I'm pretty comfortable saying that it's fine. So it looks like we just have to replace this front kind of crash bumper bar here, and obviously a new radiator, these plastics up here in the front, headlight, the bumper, and I mean the hood, not reusable, but the car could be driven at least until those parts are painted or whatever the case may be. I'm just checking the alignment visually. Looks like it's all right. Both wheels are slightly this way, so, and the wheel is turned. Nothing here that's too crazy, too awesome that I just have to have it. That Malibu is a little more of a project than I thought. You can see it wouldn't stay running. I didn't want to keep that guy there too long because he wasn't an employee, he was another viewer, and obviously he had cars to look at. So after a few tries, I told him to just go ahead. So the Malibu's a maybe if it stays real cheap, to the point where I could use the parts in my other one if there's something more wrong with that car than I anticipate. This one, knowing that it needs some brake work, has a little bit of body rust, the miles are not actual. A bit safe on this one as well. Stay low enough where I'm into it for a good price. It leaves me some room to take care of the cosmetics and the brakes and whatever other issues may be hiding. And that Alero we're going to cross off our list altogether because it smelled terrible and had no coolant, and the cooling system felt very hot, and there was a little bit of exhaust gas coming out of the surge tank. So we're going to pass on that one altogether. No AC in that car as well. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for the next one. We'll see if I bought anything.